how I used to do things in my corporate life is I go in prepared, right? This is very Singaporean.
Yes,
right? Your structure in place, your SOP is there.
Yes.
In a startup world and in a market like Indonesia, you kind of like, whatever you prepare for, it's going to be like, you know. So it's really, I've learned to kind of sit back and watch what the market does.
Yes.
Right? And then you sit and then you kind of decide.
And respond.
A little step at a time. Right? You know, if it's not too bad, maybe you can let the community respond to it. They have their ways to maneuver around it and respond to your product. And in that whole process, your community grows. Always look at the market. It's really the market that is going to give you the best information.
Lim Shu Fen is the former Vice President and Head of Entertainment and Smart Life at StarHub and was awarded SG 100 Women in Tech. She is the founder of Gluu, which is a decentralized P2P marketplace for mobile data which hosts a cloud that provides secure connectivity anywhere and is powered by Gluers who share the data for rewards. Hi everybody, welcome back to this series. Today we'll be interviewing Shu Fen from Gluu Life. Hi Shu Fen.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us for this video series as well as podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So this is part of the founding story where we interview startups of different stages from different verticals. And today we have Gluu Life, of course, which is more digital economy focused, a bit of telco related and sharing economy as well. Mm-hmm. So tell us more about yourself, Gluu Life, and the story behind it.
Okay, so I'm like a middle-ager founder. I spent about 2 decades in corporate life. Actually, I worked for a really long time in a local telco before I started Gluu Life. So we incorporated Gluu Life in 2017. We went commercial in 2019. So we're we're downloaded in more than 10 countries, but we are mostly localized in Indonesia and Singapore.
All right. Okay. And of course, congratulations on winning the Juniper Research Future Digital Awards. And that's in the Citizen Engagement Solution category because of what you do, right? So what does this award mean to you?
Oh, it means a lot. It was it's the second award that we won. I mean, Juniper is like a recognized and trusted industry brand. I mean, there are big brand names that has won the award. So we were a startup, right? We commercialized only in 2 years. It's a big kind of pat on the back and a recognition of what we're trying to do, which is really to enable individuals and people to make use of their devices to get internet, especially in developing countries. So I mean, I always say that our mission is to extend internet access to as much as 100%, right? So internet access in developed countries is not a problem, right? In Singapore, you don't get signal problems everywhere you go, and people tend to think of it as, it's more than 95%, 99% covered. But actually in developing countries, internet access is a problem. It's only in recent years that in Indonesia, it crossed 60%. Okay. So the idea is to make it, as you know, internet access is related to economic opportunities.
Education access, financial access.
Yeah. So it's so important in everyone's life. So I think it's kind of a recognition of what we're trying to do in this space.
Okay. Yeah. And another few things I want to understand is what actually inspired you to start Gluu Life based on your experience in telco, and why not just stick to the corporate life in a huge telco company? Why go through the very treacherous path of a startup?
To this day, I'm still wondering. I have a knack of just going to something and trying it without knowing how deep it is, and as I go into it and I realize the depth as I go along, and I guess it's good learning experience. What inspired me, my corporate life, I dealt, so I was running BUs, I was running the media and the internet access BU, so it's quite related. So I know a lot about connectivity, internet access, although it was in a Singapore context. I suppose you can say that was the catalyst, right? To try and do something in a structure that possibly I have a little bit more control and explore new markets and to try and make an impact.
Okay. And so your target audience for Gluu Life, right, to enable internet access for them are largely people who are a bit less privileged. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, it's highly, the users that we are seeing, it's highly correlated with the working class.
Correct.
Because in Indonesia, more than 90% of the users are on prepaid. Right? So unlike in Singapore, the difficulty in getting internet access is kind of an everyday thing. When you go out and there's no signal, you go, okay. Yeah. But in Singapore, we're like, what? There's no internet access. So Yeah, so it's kind of like quite a new experience. Quite a new. I mean, it's the same product, but impacts people in such different ways in different markets.
Correct.
Yeah,
and I'm sure there might be some challenges that come with targeting this particular working class segment, right? There are long tail customers, but low revenue in that sense.
Yeah.
So in the long run, how are you going to leverage on this working class target audience?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So Indonesia is a huge market. It's like almost 300 million.
Exactly.
Scale is like, that kind of scale. And when we went in, so our business model is we allow people to just source for internet from kind of strangers around you, right? The nearby devices. And there has to be an incentive for the sharer. And the taker has to give something in return, right?
Correct.
Nothing is for free. So we have this digital currency that allows the trade. But we realized going into it that the propensity to pay from the working class is low.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, they just want it free.
Yes.
Right? Secure and free. So then we started to work with brands, businesses. We brought them in and we say, let's get them to sponsor internet.
Okay.
Right? Let's get them to be enablers, to be to enable internet access, sponsoring the incentives for the whole business model to work. And in return, what we will do with the anonymized data that we're getting, we will turn it into insights for them. So that's how we scaled in the beginning. We kind of did a lot of free things, to get users on board. We basically use our know-how, our data analytics services to turn it into insights by working with brands.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the start of most consumer-facing products and services, especially in the sharing economy. You go in free and get a lot of acquisition. And if you monetize way too early, then that's where your churn rate starts to increase, right? But for your sort of business in the sharing economy, you need to hit some sort of critical mass to be really revolutionary. And what is your game plan to hit this critical mass?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. So B2C is phenomenally expensive.
It is.
Markets. Yeah. I mean, we've seen examples of how Grab and...
Yeah, it's a huge marketing play as well. You need huge marketing capital.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, we started thinking about this, that as a startup, we cannot always be relying on investment funds and throwing money in the market. So hence the start to B2B, right? We started to work with brands who we can bring them in and they provide the inflow of funds. And recently, we've gone a bit even further with a pivot towards... so a lot of in the first year of service, a lot of engagement happened in the app, in the Gluu app. And then when we talk to brands, the brands who are sponsoring this will say, but your app is inheriting all the engagement and the brand feel good and whatnot. I also want this on my own brand.
Okay.
So what we've started to do is to create a product. So we turn the Gluu juice into like a plugin.
So it's like a white label sort of integration API,
like an SDK.
I see. Okay.
That brands, if they have consumer-facing apps, they can plug in and still enjoy the internet sharing economy, the trading of internet and the seeking of Wi-Fi within the app itself, making use of their own ecosystem, whether they want to use points to reward or using their own login. So we've made that pivot and we're actually already integrated into an Indonesian e-wallet. We're in test right now. I mean, there are some news coverage is public.
Yes,
news in the public domain.
Correct.
I think we are going to make an announcement really soon on when the users can get it. And we're also in talks with a couple of brands in Indonesia and in Singapore and possibly a third market. Yeah.
Oh, that's great! A third market. That I
mean,
know.
it's early stages, but but this model gives us the flexibility to be able, because critical mass, like you say, is important.
Exactly.
You want to go into the app and be able to have people who are in Gluu for you to,
and perhaps leverage on the partner's brand name.
Yes, that's right, and their network. Right,
Yes.
They have huge bases and huge users, and the best thing for us is to get our engine out there.
Yes, the service out there first. The brand name of Gluu can, still slowly gain traction.
Gluu inside thing,
Yes.
embedded inside. And the thing for us is then the user experience is good, right?
Yes,
so you
correct.
get into the app and you realize, there's a lot of people whom you really can get connectivity from. Yeah,
correct. So what is the user journey like if it's, in the Indonesia e-wallet with a Gluu Live plugin? how does the sharing of the internet connectivity still work?
Right. So it's really quite simple. So in a regular app, we typically engage in a discussion with a partner on how they see this unfolding, how their user journey, and it shouldn't be, the core use of the app should remain. So it's just a little Wi-Fi icon on the first page, and when you kind of hit the icon, and then it starts to search if there are users around that you can source connectivity from. As to how the trade happens is we really have, this is a conversation between us and the brand. Like how do we want the ecosystem to work? How do we want the economy to work?
So it's very important to get alignment with your partner brands, so that your user experience doesn't get affected much, but they still enjoy the same benefits.
That's right.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, and at the very initial phase, right? Were you validating the product in Singapore only or in both markets? And what's the timing like? Was it Singapore first, then Indonesia, or Indonesia first and Singapore? Because they're very, very different needs.
Yeah. Yes. We are talking about Gluu as a whole?
Yes, Gluu as a whole.
So we launched in Singapore first. Actually, we did out later. But it didn't quite take off, honestly, because the infrastructure in Singapore is so good, right?
Yes, I mean, you have Wi-Fi, wireless SG everywhere. Yeah. Your malls, your buildings have Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Yes.
So initially, a lot of people were very interested. They were, such an interesting service. So we really hit traction when we landed in Indonesia.
Of course. Because then there's bigger problems there to solve.
Yeah. Right. And we kind of realized it as we go in. I mean, we were quite like when we first went in, and by the second month we really saw a huge surge. We threw viral. So actually we were about to invest in marketing, and then we realized that, oh my god, we're so overwhelmed by the traffic, because they were kind of passing the app around and saying, hey, download this app because you can source for internet and all that. We were a bit overwhelmed by the traffic.
Sometimes you just can't be ready.
So it was a good learning experience the first 3 to 6 months. We had some issues with scams, as with as with any startup entry into the developing market. So we spent a lot of time reinforcing our platform, learning and reinforcing our community rules, engagement rules, how things would be. So that was the experience in Indonesia.
And were you physically there in Indonesia to kickstart and launch it?
Actually, we spent a year in Indonesia before we commercially launched it. We wanted to make sure we had good
infrastructure,
partnerships. So we're quite blessed. We have about half of our investors, and one of them has become our strategic advisor, are actually Indonesians.
So they understand the landscape better. Indonesia culture is completely different compared to Singapore.
Yeah, totally relationships focused.
Yes, very personal.
Yeah, and the network. So our growth is really instrumental to our Indonesian investors and advisors. And one of them is Alex. He's Alex Rusty. He was the CEO of Indosat, and he came out a few years ago to start his own fintech group of businesses. So we've been working very closely with his team, and he's been helping us, introducing us to brands and all that. So that really helped.
Okay. So, and I think it would be a great advice to any very nascent startup founders out there, right? That finding a key investor, especially a strategic one, would be instrumental to the early stages, especially entering a new market or rolling out a service with great traction, right?
Yes.
So, how did you manage to get connected with the strategic investor, Alex, and how did he took a chance and put money with you?
Yeah. So I always think that in anything that in life is it's half your hard work and talent, and the other half is really what the universe is going to give you. Universe will meet you halfway. So I guess my corporate life helped in a way that we have contacts, right? So you speak to one person say, okay, I'll introduce you to another person, and Alex is he wasn't a direct contact. It was an introduction, and we kind of met him fresh, and he was really intrigued by the idea, and he was sold. And even today, he's very passionate about this.
Okay.
Yeah, and working very closely. So we have a couple of other investors who some of them don't really want to be named, but they are in other industries, and they are also actively helping us link up with brands we can work with, landing partners that we can kind of leverage on when we enter the market. Yeah.
Okay,
so it's a lot of groundwork.
Yes.
You have to go into the market. A lot of groundwork, totally different from Singapore. Nothing from that perspective, in a way, nothing in my Singapore corporate life really prepared me for the whole new market dynamics, the culture, how the users interact with products and services, what they expect. UI is totally different.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that we learned very quickly is when we do tests for applications, in Singapore, the infrastructure is so good, right?
Yes,
you never lose connection. So a lot of the app processors assumes, because there's a lot of communication to the cloud,
right? You can just copy and paste the same infra.
Assumes that you always have connection to send data back to your backend.
Yes.
But in Indonesia, connection drops every now and then. And that in the beginning screwed up a lot of our backend processes. Then we were like, crashes, and we quickly learned that the way we built our app, our testing environments, the baseline assumption is a bad internet connectivity. So what do? How are you going to relay the data in order to make sure the app still functions optimally?
Correct.
And you not lose data. Yeah.
And from an investor's perspective, this is something that I've heard an angel investor say in a podcast recently, is that one of the things that he looked at is whether the founders are in that market that they're trying to serve and operate, especially in the very early days. It's very, very critical. Of course, now with COVID, it might be a bit challenging, but that's one of the criteria people look at. So I think being in Indonesia was quite critical to the launch in that market as well.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, and I have personally seen how sharing economy, in fashion rental, car ride-hailing, and things including internet connectivity itself, right, have really impacted people's lives. So how do you really get in touch with the customers and see, the changes or problems that they face?
Yeah, and as I was saying, that we spent more than a year before we launched. We spoke to partners, we spoke to investors, and you kind of have to walk the streets. You kind of have to look at the brands that they interact with, how they interact with apps, and the thing about Indonesia is also that if you're dealing with the working class, their phones tend to be lower end. They don't upgrade their OS so often.
Okay.
Yeah. So then the way that you structure your application, your user interface has to make sure it's optimized for that. And because they don't have a lot of space in the phone,
so you have to keep it simple, right?
To keep it small.
Yes.
And you have to kind of really prove you're occupying that space in the phone, because they delete very fast.
I see. So why
they want?
Yes.
Deletes. And it's not so much about data, it's just about I don't have space. This one doesn't offer me anything to delete. Yeah, so you got to kind of get straight to the best value that you offer to the user. It has to be apparent in the app.
And that's a very good point. And also retaining them, for them to get hooked under the app, keep using to justify that storage space.
That's right. And once you get that, the biggest reward you can get is that the viral rate is really high. Because they tell each other and they start sending the apps to each other. And they say, hey, download, so that whole that helps you scale.
Yes.
Right?
Building a sort of network community.
Correct. Leveraging on the word of mouth. During the months when we experienced searches, we didn't even have to go out and tell everybody this is what we're going to do. We tell when a few users in our community knows that we're going to upload this new reward, the whole base knows. Because the word just goes around.
And it's fast, and sometimes it's even more effective than any ads that you can run.
That's right.
In Asia.
Yeah, that's right. I remember in the first 6 months, our wallet was actually traded in the market space. They were accumulating a lot of our digital currency is called glitz, right?
Yes, correct.
And they were selling it.
Oh, you can sell it. Okay.
I don't know.
Is it something that
for sale? No,
manage?
It's not. No, it's not official. So every user has a wallet of their own.
I see.
That contains your digital currency that you can kind of exchange for rewards in the store.
Yes.
Yeah. So these people were participating in our programs and earning a lot of glitz and trying to trade it. In the open market, we were like, oh, that's really interesting, and they were doing their own kind of education video. This is how you use Gluu.
That's great.
To accompany
they become an advocate already of the brand.
Yeah,
I see. Okay, so I think in not just yourself, but many startups face circumstances that they cannot foresee. You might not have foreseen that people would trade glitz on the open market, right?
Totally not.
As with other consumer products, as with other consumer services, right? And then when it comes to such unexpected scenarios, is it something that you just let the consumers do what they like? is something you might try to manage or restrict? Like, what's your treatment to such a scenario?
So, I mean, this is really interesting because how I used to do things in my corporate life is I go in prepared, right? This is very Singaporean stuff.
Yes,
your structure in place, your SOP is there.
Yes.
In a startup world and in a market like Indonesia, you kind of like, whatever you prepare for, it's going to be like, you know. So it's really, I've learned to kind of sit back and watch what the market does.
Yes.
Right? And then you sit and then you kind of decide.
And respond.
A little step at a time. Right? You know, if it's not too bad, maybe you can let the community respond to it. They have their ways to, you know, maneuver around and respond to your product. And in that whole process, your community grows. Your community gets engaged with your product, and there's a whole. The more they discover themselves, their use case, the more attached they are.
I see.
To
Yes.
the use case. Yeah. So that's kind of what I mean, more chill, not chill, but kind of not go in with this, I'm going to go in with this structure. But
so whatever you planned out for
be flexible, be agile, always look at the market. It's really the market that is going to give you the best information.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And a couple more questions, especially regarding geography-wise and the markets, right? Southeast Asia is one of the most dynamic regions in the whole world. And every country, you know, from Indonesia, Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand, have a different set of problems, different sort of personas and customers there. So what is your game plan scaling across this region? And I understand that you mentioned that you're exploring a third market. So what are some of the key considerations or challenges that you foresee going market to market?
It's a huge undertaking to break a new market. Our experience in Indonesia, and Indonesia is so huge, it's so big. A lot of dynamics and the right partnerships, the right understanding, the right support, and hands and feet on the ground is really important. So we're always looking for new markets. You know, there are always suggestions saying, hey, you know, your kind of thing can work in Vietnam, in Thailand, in India, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. We're always open, but we're always trying to talk to partners whom we think can either go with us or can sort of expand our community. And with COVID, it's becoming, I mean, honestly, it's
a challenge. Yes, definitely.
So we've lost the ability to service the market.
I see.
Ourselves, which is so critical to us. So we work very closely with our investor companies. We work closely with our affiliates on ground. So, I mean, the COVID situation is kind of like, you know, it's still pending out as we go along. So a lot of considerations when we think about this. But Indonesia is really quite big enough and keeping us busy.
It is, I'm sure. It's your fourth largest population, you know. Doing business in Indonesia is it's good enough of a trophy already.
Yeah.
Sometimes some companies are not even looking at anywhere else because Indonesia is just insanely huge. And even between, you know, your greater Jakarta to your Bandungs and your around your East Java and all that, there are so many dynamic differences between each little region, the islands of Indonesia.
That's right. I would say that our business model is quite replicable across developing countries like that with similar dynamics.
Yes.
But a huge degree of localization is required. So the right partnerships. We also need to seek funds, right, to make sure that we have the right resources to expand and really get the best out of our traction in the market.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. And so now we have covered quite a few things about the Indonesian market as well as the background and the growth story of Gluu Life. Now let's go more into the tech and the telco space, which you're a subject matter expert. We don't really have someone on this series with as much telco experience as you do, right? And of course, really, I don't think so. Yes, but we just haven't chanced them. Right. Mostly, you know, in tech, AR, commerce.
Right.
So from my observations, right, I observed that quite a lot of telco companies are going to different verticals like financial services and rolling out, you know, very data-first products. And of course, given your extensive experience, how is that going to affect Gluu Life and the adoption of internet down the road?
So I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a subject matter expert, but based on my years in the telco space, and it's been a while, but occupation hazard. I still read about them, what they do.
I'm sure.
So obviously now it's the push for 5G across the world. At the end of the day, every telco what they have to do is they have made an investment in the infrastructure, right? Whether it's the frequency cost, the capex and whatnot, it's about making money. So as you know, traditional revenue pots, the roaming are coming down. So what they're going to do is to try and push towards data, more and more data-related services and getting the consumption and adoption of data. And maybe because they're about communications at the end of the day, maybe export them as easily as APIs that many businesses and enterprises can make use of. I would say that in Indonesia we succeed because of not so much telcos, but because the country is so big, right? The rollout will always be fragmented. And the way that the plans are distributed will also always be fragmented. So like the price of 1 gig in Indonesia can vary on a spectrum of, the last I calculated, 250,000 rupiah. That's $25, yes. So that depends on where you get.
I see.
They're offering plans like you can get it 100 meg, 300 meg, 500 meg, 1 gig.
Those are so small,
Exactly. There are thousands of plans. And for each permutation, you can have it for a day, 3 days, 5 days, 7 days.
Okay.
Because the working class also buy based on affordability.
I see. Right? And some of them live day to day.
Exactly. Which is why products are bought in sachets, not big bottles over there.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's sold by convenience as well. You're not going to travel 100 km just to save 10,000 rupiah.
Correct.
So that arbitrage opportunity is always there. So I would say that as long as data is such an integral, you need connectivity, you need internet. There's no way anyone can live without internet. So data is such an important commodity and has value. So I would, and that's what Gluu's mission is. We just want to make it easy and accessible. So I think that as this grows, as speed improves, as bandwidth improves, there are just many more business models in which we can engage in. Yeah,
and that's because of all these different little gaps and lifestyle opportunities that all your consumers in Indonesia face.
That's right. And Gluu really is, because we aggregate across telcos, right? So the wallet that you have, if you have that digital currency, it allows you to trade for internet across any available, even if this is not your SIM card provider. And maybe because at that point in time you have no signal, it allows you with that wallet to kind of get internet access from another network, from another
different telco,
without even changing the SIM card.
I see.
Right, so you can imagine how useful this is in a local context.
Because you can get more coverage.
Exactly.
I see.
Yeah. So it's in a way quite similar to eSIM. Like, in future you're going to have just a wallet to be able to kind of say that you want 10 gig from this telco and 20 gig from this telco and kind of use it in between. And if this COVID situation improves, think of the use case when you travel.
Oh yes, correct.
To have a wallet that you can kind of tap on existing network, and also because the suppliers are people like you and me who are enjoying it at local rates, right? So you're getting it at hopefully cheaper, the most optimal. The way this is priced is peer-to-peer, so we don't. We're about matching people, right?
Yes,
we're not reselling. So you decide how much you want to trade it for, and I decide how much I want to take it for. Yeah. So we also use data analytics to try and understand the acquisition cost, the data acquisition cost versus how much you're going to take it, how much the appetite to say connect.
Correct.
And what we do is we then recommend best sort of price in terms of grids to trade based on location, based on certain times. Based on certain characteristics. For example, in certain regions, we know that the sharer tends to be from this telco. So this telco's network tends to be more ubiquitous as opposed to other telcos. So we try and optimize connections that way.
So you are really leading on to my next question, which is about data. So I understand that Gluu Life is quite data analytics driven, right? So what sort of data is being collected by the consumers? And with that data, what can brands leverage on? And how can brands use this data strategically in their businesses?
So we measure we take anonymized data, every user interaction in the app. We take it and we kind of study it and turn it into insights. So the insights depends on the brands that we work on. For example, we work with Nestle in Indonesia.
Okay.
So they might have specific questions, so to say, right? Problem statements to say, okay, I want to know how popular this product is in this region. I want to know the consumption patterns of this product. So in Indonesia, the problem we discover is that the lack of small data. Indonesia's trade largely is what they call warungs.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, warungs and mitras and tokos. So what we do is we work with small businesses in Indonesia as well. We allow them to just put up a Wi-Fi hotspot, because the minute you have a phone,
in the warung,
okay. So a very small shop, and coverage is enough.
Yes,
and from that,
one warung can be near another warung.
Yeah. From that, we run programs with the brands to try and acquire data and to try and turn that data into useful insights.
I see.
For the brands,
And then everything could be looked at the aggregate level as well.
That's right.
Okay. And I think that's what a lot of startups are trying to solve. Perhaps with different approaches. Some of them rolling out, say, bookkeeping services for warongs, e-wallets, payments, or warehouse inventory systems. And the crux of everything, right? The most valuable asset is definitely getting the data out there, because it's just so difficult to track, which is what you mentioned. Okay. Moving on to a couple more questions. We're down towards the end of this podcast and video. So, of course, in another interview, you mentioned that Gluu Live deploys AI and blockchain technologies to optimize your P2P trades, right? Would you share more about it?
Blockchain was something that we kind of were experimenting with when we first started the startup. But because we have a digital currency, so we tried to explore tokenizing it, using blockchain to secure the transactions and all that. But at that point in time, we felt that the blockchain adoption, because we are B2C, we started B2C,
exactly.
Right? So consumers are quite important to us. The adoption wasn't so widespread, and it was at that point quite difficult for the users to understand, how do I create a blockchain wallet and a crypto wallet, and so we felt that would impede our adoption.
Right.
So we kind of decided to use just internet technologies to scale. We do a lot of data analytics because of the data that we get.
Yes.
For our own internal use, to optimize some of our processes and the way we engage with our customers. And as I said, we use this to work with brands who actually in turn will then sponsor the internet for the users in country. Yeah.
And speaking of say testing out the blockchain concept and tokenizing your currencies, right? Sometimes I believe in a lot of circumstances with a lot of startup founders, you can dream big and dream the most high level concepts. But at the end of the day, right, in certain markets, it really requires the very simplest of concepts for adoption. Right, and for quick customer acquisition, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're dealing with, say, the working class in your developing economy like Indonesia, all these plans for tokenizing and all that can be down the pipeline. But if it's done too early, sometimes it impedes growth and your acquisition.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's really how the user's attitude towards it. Is it easy to use? Do they have a big use case for it in their lives?
Yes.
For B2C models, this is the most critical. However deep and high-tech your thing is, it's got to be critical to me, right? In my life, then I will use it. Then there is impact. Then you're making an impact.
Exactly. So the key skill here, right, is really empathy for your customers. Not picturing the coolest thing that's going to headline a magazine.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, empathizing the customers and see, okay, what will really solve their problems and what's the easiest to use. And sometimes it's not the fanciest of solutions.
Yeah. So I think the difference in the journey when like the Gluu startup journey versus corporate is a lot of startup founders, this is what I'm going to say is what everybody does. When you first start, you are yourself on the street talking to users, explaining how it works, and you get that ground feel you see. You're not getting it from some research that you commission or McKinsey, BCG study to say that this is the number of users that you might get, right?
Yes.
So that's how I built Gluu. I really it's the feedback that I hear from users, it's the feedback I hear on the ground, it's feedback I hear from, and we just go back, okay, maybe we can change this, maybe we can change that.
Okay. And this is the ground up approach that a lot of startups have to adopt, right? In order to be really the closest to the customers it's really high level, like high touch
Walking the
points.
streets, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, and down to our last few questions. How will the introduction and the adoption of 5G, especially in Singapore and other smart cities, change the landscape for Gluu Life?
I feel that we see opportunities because 5G is more bandwidth. 5G will go through the same cycle as 4G. Right? There's a whole rollout phase, and the telcos will come up with new price plans, to try and engage the market. So I don't think that the dynamics will change, except that the tech has changed, right?
Yes.
Because it's higher bandwidth, higher speed, phones will start changing. It will start with the early adopters, and it will come to this. So I think that there is much more opportunities for us to use this to improve internet access in the markets that we operate in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing in your favor.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Okay, before we wrap things up, right, do you have any advice, maybe from lessons that you learned in your corporate experience, that you have to share with some of the startup founders watching this right now?
Don't do it.
You must be crazy enough to do it, right?
No, I take that back. So I'm seeing that it's quite a common path. I mean, quite a few people are, especially the younger people. For me, my own experience is that it really, because you start with, for me, because I jumped from corporate where there's so much resources at my, to nothing, right? I have to
bootstrapping sometimes.
They just create something out of nothing.
Yes.
So it requires you to dig deep, right, into you as a person, and know your strengths and weaknesses, and kind of open your eyes and to be real about what works and what can't, what I can deal with and what I can't. So it's life-changing.
Yes.
It's really life-changing. It's got to be about what you like to do. It's got to be about passion.
Yes.
A lot of times you're going to get very tired. You're going to get a lot of hard knocks. You're going to get a lot of door, and then you have to keep going.
Yes.
Right? So
sounds like a very emotional journey.
And
yes.
I know myself much better now.
I see.
I'm not that. I'm like in my mid-40s, right? So it's good for self-awareness, and it's good for character building. And what I want to do is really to make sure that what I do has an impact.
Okay.
Yeah. So be real. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable.
Okay.
And if you're game to try, it's going to be life-changing, interesting experience.
Exactly. So you guys should know what you're signing up for. But as they say, high risk, high rewards, and delving into this space, stepping away from the corporate experience, it's huge risk. Right, your paycheck is not certain.
No paycheck.
Even no paycheck for the first years, which is very, very typical. You're in the reds, going to a new market, meeting new people. It's very, very scary, but the rewards, like truly understanding yourself and also impacting many people's lives, especially the very underserved people, the underserved working class, will be a very, very fulfilling journey down the road. Okay, so of course, where can people reach you to find out more, or where can people connect with you to find out more about Gluu Life?
They can just look me up on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Shu Fen. Do you have anything else to say to our audience before we close?
No, fantastic time talking to you.
Thank you so much for being on this show, and thank you. I personally learned a lot, and I'm sure you guys did as well. Of course, if you enjoyed this episode, do give us a like and follow us for more episodes to come. I'm Vanessa, and thank you for listening. This podcast is produced by Quest Ventures, top venture capital fund in Asia, in collaboration with Pixel, the innovation hub of Infocom Media Development Authority. Follow us for more exciting episodes to come, and stay in touch with us or find out more about Quest Ventures investment syndicates at questventures.com. Till next time.